Aloha and welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about list methods. So this is going to be one of those information-packed lessons that we're going to go through a bunch of different methods, and I'll explain a little bit about their usage. But let me go ahead and pull up our handy-dandy little VS Code editor, and let's take a look in here. So with list methods, it's going to be kind of like string methods that we talked about before. It's a good thing that there's a lot of stuff to learn. It's a good thing that you have these different methods because these are little tools that you're going to be able to use in the future. And you don't have to memorize everything. You just have to remember that, hey, I can do this kind of thing. There's a function for that. There's a method for that that makes life a lot easier. So anyhow, without further ado, let's talk about this. So list methods, most list methods do in-place modifications. So you got to be careful. Remember what we talked about before, if you have two things pointing at the same object and it's a list, if you modify that list using some kind of in-place modification through a method or something like that, it's going to affect all of the things that point to it. So be careful with that. So we're going to show the first method that we have here is the append method. So we have append and it takes X, and what this is going to do is it's going to add something to the end of the list. And I showed this in the last video that we did, but let's go ahead and see what that does. So we're going to start with fruit list, which is kiwi, and we're going to just hit play, and we're going to see that indeed we get a one item list. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the append method, and we're going to then print it out after that. And if it works the way we think it does, or we've professed it works up here, we're going to see a list that has kiwi and banana. Note again here, we're not saying fruit list equals fruit list dot append banana. This does in place modification. So all we need to do here is call our list with the append function, and then we'll see that fruit list has two items in it. So we hit play, and sure enough, kiwi, now we have the banana, it's appended to the end of the list. Remember, list order is important. So it's adding that in there. The kiwi is going to be the 0th element, banana is going to be the 1th element. So keep that in mind. Then our next method here is going to be the extend method. And extend method essentially takes the initial list. It's going to extend it with the elements that you have in the list that you're sending as an argument here. So when we go ahead and we take our previous one, which is kiwi banana, and we extend it with grape and apple, we're going to have kiwi, banana, grape, and apple as our list. So when we run that, indeed, we have kiwi, banana, grape, and apple. So that works as we expect. Now, let's take a look at insert. We can actually insert it into a specific place if we want to. So we can say insert into index element X. So let's see how that works. Let's uncomment this. So we're going to insert into position 1 plum, and we're going to print it. So position 1, that would be 0 and 1. So before or after kiwi and before banana, we're going to be putting in plum. So it should be kiwi, plum, banana. So we go ahead and we run it, and sure enough, kiwi, plum, banana, grape, apple. So that's how insert works. We give it an index to put it in, and then we tell it what to put in there, which is the X. So we can also remove elements here. We can remove a certain element, which is it's gonna look for X in there, and it's gonna remove it. If you have something in there that you don't actually, if you're trying to remove something that's not actually in there, you're gonna get a value error. So you're gonna have to take care of that. You're gonna have to be careful about that. So let's go ahead and try to remove plum from there. And sure enough, we're able to remove plum. So hold on, let me go back and comment this out real quick. So we're going to take a look. We're going to run it. So we get the kiwi, plum, banana, grape, apple. Now if we uncomment that and we run it, then we're also going to get the none after it, because this is actually not returning anything. So if I wanted to see what fruit list looked like after doing that operation, we'd have to print fruit list again. So we print it, and sure enough, we get kiwi, banana, grape, apple, because we've just removed the element plum. So plum was at the 1th position, is now gone. So if we tried to remove something that wasn't there, let's just say X, when we do this, we're going to get that value error that I talked about. So be careful about that. Make sure that you have something there. And we'll talk about this later, but you can do error handling so that it'll continue on if you do have something like that. There's different ways of doing that. So we won't talk about that yet, but that's coming up in a later chapter. So the next function that we have is called pop. And pop is a neat little function. And there's a story by, I think it's Dijkstra. If you've taken computer science theory, there's a story called Little Harmonic Labyrinth by a guy named Dijkstra that talks about pushing and popping and the idea of, you push something onto a stack and then you pop something off the stack. So what pop does here is it removes and returns the last item in the list. So if we hit play here, we're going to get the last item that was on there, which if we look over here, let's see, Apple, it's going to pop off Apple from the end of it. And then we're printing out the fruit list. And sure enough, it doesn't have Apple on there anymore. It gave it back to us as the result of that. So that's kind of neat. We can also do a pop of a certain item in a certain place. So we can use pop of an index to remove and return the last item in the list. So, well, actually not the last item in the list. We're doing the specified item in the list. So if we want the one from the 1th position removed, which would be here, banana, we try popping the banana. That doesn't sound right, but if we pop the banana, banana is now gone, and it returned banana as the result of that. So that's a nice little function to have. Oh, and here we come up with some nice ones, sorting. So sorting is very convenient to have. So you can do a sort. So right now it's coming back as kiwi grape. That's not in alphabetical order. So if we wanted it to be in alphabetical order, we could do a fruit list dot sort and then print it. And that would give us, yay, we went from kiwi grape to grape kiwi. That's awesome. And then we also have a function for reversing something. So we can reverse the entire list if we wanted to. So we're going to just use fruit list dot reverse, and then we're going to print it out and see what happens. We should go back to kiwi grape at that point, and sure enough, that's what we did. We went to kiwi grape. So we also have index of X, and this is nice because it'll tell us what's at the position X. So if we go down here and we say print, well, actually, it'll tell us the position at which X occurs. So if we're trying to see the index of grape to see where that exists in there, we do play and it tells us it's in the 1th position. So it's 0, 1, as we see here. If we put something that's not in there, like let's just say EE, it's going to tell us, boom, value error, EE is not in the list. So it's going to stop the entire program. So you have to make sure that you account for things like that when you're writing code. But otherwise, grape is in position 1. That's what we expect. Now we're going to do a little bit of an experiment here. We're going to go ahead and add 3 grapes to it. We're going to print that list out. Then we have our last method here, which is called count. So what we're going to do here is we're adding 3 grapes in there. That'll give us a total of 4 grapes. We're going to print out the fruit list so you can see it. And then we're going to actually say fruit list count, and we're going to count the number of grapes that are in there. So if we hit play, we get our 1, 2, 3, 4 grapes. And sure enough, we have 4 grapes in there. And that's exactly what we wanted. So I mentioned this earlier, but the best practice is to use methods to add and remove elements. I showed you in the last section that it is possible to add an element by using like a slice, and that's a little bit on the messy side, and it doesn't look as nice and clean as using .append. So in general, don't use those alternative methods because they're less readable. And it just, it's nice to use the included methods. It looks a lot cleaner. It looks a lot more understandable because the methods are named obviously what it does, and that makes it, that's, self-documenting in a way. So please do that in the future. So anyhow, those are the methods that we have for lists. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to send me an email, arrange a Zoom meetup, and I'll be happy to help you more. So if there's no questions, I will see you in the next lesson.